It's a show. It's a podcast show. Welcome to the Julie Cross Podcast Show. Empowering, energising and entertaining. Hello, friends. Nice to have you all here with me today. Julie Cross here. I just wanted to perhaps share with you something I wrote a few years ago, and it's around sadness, because I think in this space of positive thinking and the positive thinking movement, we got a bit confused about owning our sadness. We suddenly, I think, thought that if we were sad, that it meant that we weren't being positive, or that if you're sad for a day, you must be depressed. And so I just wanted to honour sadness for a moment and just give you perhaps a fresh perspective of that, about surrendering to the sadness. Because, I often say that I am a very happy person who has some deeply sad moments that might extend to, half a day or maybe a day sometimes. So, and I honour that. I honour those moments. So let me share this with you, and perhaps you can relate to it. So maybe I get why there is depression. Maybe I get why sadness, fear, challenges fester and become an overwhelming burden that then manifests as depression or anxiety, because it seems that a lot of people are not okay with being around sadness, hearing it, talking about it, listening to it, empathising with it. They would really rather that you go away until you're feeling better. So maybe this is a sign that you should stay inside when the storm hits, because nobody really wants to hear it. A time when we are most vulnerable, when we are sad, but nobody seems to really care, or they care but don't really want to hear it. I mean, tell it to someone else. We're positive people here. Yes, sometimes we cry into our pillows at night, but we won't admit it, because I read this book that said you just got to stay positive, so I better do that. And I do a lot of that, but that doesn't mean that I feel that it's wrong to be sad sometimes, that I don't feel bad about being overwhelmed, and that it's very appropriate to the situation that you're in. Now, don't get confused. I'm not talking about that negative energy, sucking glass half empty, always stealing your dreams kind of person, the one who complains about everything all the time. I'm talking about the person who has been in or is still in a genuinely challenging situation, or going through some really big, some really life-changing big stuff with grief attached. This is a person who needs to say, hello, and for you to be with them and give them a safe space to express grief. This is a person who should be given the space to do that and never be made to feel that they are wrong to feel that way. No wonder we then internalise it. It is when we feel that we are wrong to be sad, or wrong to have moments of fear, moments of vulnerability, that you start looking for something to fix it, because you feel like it's wrong and it has to be fixed. You feel like that you're alone because everyone else is pretending that they're coping, or they're medicated to cope. It's just ridiculous. We've got to start making friends with this again. What this is about for me is acknowledging all the emotions that life experiences cause us to have. It's not about labelling those emotions as good or bad, but just about doing them and then moving through them. When I was in the midst of my husband just having had a stroke and my son being diagnosed with autism, I went to a doctor with a pinched nerve in my neck, which I told him, I felt was from stress. He asked what I was stressed about. I told him, and I started crying. Now, wouldn't you think that would be appropriate to cry in amidst telling that story? But he then asked me if I wanted something for it. And he wasn't talking about my neck. He was talking about my crying. I said, how about a tissue, for God's sake? Now, my regular doctor is fantastic, and she keeps a check on my physical and my emotional health. And so I'm not saying that all doctors are like this, but clearly this happens at the moment that you sit there in sadness, that it should be medicated. It should be honoured. So would you like a tissue, Julie? Are you seeing a counsellor? Do you need someone to talk about this? Validate my sadness. It would be natural for you to be upset in this moment, Julie. Let it out. It's good that you're letting it out and you're expressing it. Don't try and medicate me for it. And I'm not saying medication's not okay. I'm not saying there are times you need to go to that. But I'm saying if it's a moment of sadness over something you've got a right to be sad about, then allow yourself to do that and love yourself through it. Because when did it become not okay to cry? I think it was appropriate for what I was going through, and it's still appropriate that I cry about that sometimes. That does not make me a negative person. It makes me a real person. So do not deny yourself the opportunity to be with all of your emotions. It has become more evident to me as time goes on that we don't deal with all of our emotions. And yes, it is a mystery how exactly we deal with them, but to honour them and feel them for a start. But when we ignore that they are there and they keep pushing them back down and locking the door, one day that door will burst open and we will have to sit with them and look at them. So now I do my emotions. I just choose not to be doing the ones that don't serve me for extended periods of time. It doesn't serve me to be anger for an extended period of time. It doesn't serve me to focus on thoughts that cause me to feel depressed and sorry for myself for an extended period of time. It doesn't mean I don't go there, but I don't sit there. I do my emotions pretty hard. If you know me, you know I do them hard, fast and loud, and that does enable me then to move on. And I really do believe that if I don't do my emotions, they will do me. They will catch up with me. So whatever you're feeling, feel it. You know, you might have seen me do this exercise in my shows. Point to yourself. Go on, point to yourself. No one can see you. You might be running pointing to yourself. Point to yourself. Now, where did you point? I bet you didn't point to your head where all your thinking occurs. You pointed to your heart space where your feelings lie. We are feeling human beings. We are taught to focus on the positive, be positive. Nobody wants to hear you're miserable. And to some extent, that is what I teach, because what flows from you flows to you, and I get that. And we see much of it on social media. Everyone just sharing the highlights, the show reel of their lives. And, with the law of attraction, we have got to be careful. And I have analysed and meditated on this to get my thoughts right about this. But I do know that we've still got to honour our pain. Being positive doesn't mean that you ignore your pain. It means you transcend it, and you can't transcend it and grow through it unless you own it. So you need to own it and sit with it. And that doesn't mean that you necessarily have to keep telling everybody over and over again about it. But it does mean you make sure that you have a circle of people that will honour your pain with you and that you can share it with. And I think that is so important. And, we connect deepest with people when they share their pain. That's how we learn to have empathy. Because it does seem that the power of empathy is one of our deepest levels of connection. Because whatever I may have thought about you before I hear your story of some real pain in your life or what you have been through, whatever I thought of you before, it so often is changed at looking at you through the lens of the pain that you've been through. And I connect with you at a deeper level. So it makes us all feel less alone when we share. There are always plenty of people around to celebrate our success and good times, but it's when we are in pain that we need some people to sit with us. And they can only do that if we are honest about the pain we are feeling. So remember that in pain, we find the gift of empathy. And look at a community. When does a community connect the most? So much so that it moves us to tears. Yep, when we're in the midst of a natural disaster and people come out to help their neighbour that they've been living beside for 5 years and yet never even gone over to meet. And they find themselves connecting on a whole new level. So sharing your pain doesn't make you a miserable person. I mean, you don't need to be negative and melancholy, as I said, 24/7. That's not what this is about. I think the whole positive thinking movement took things to extreme. We suddenly thought we had to pretend everything was great all of the time, when in fact it wasn't. Pain is a real part of living a life, and you still have to invite your pain to come and sit with you, because what you will resist will persist. What you will resist, it will persist, and it will keep wanting to be seen. It was in the teaching of Abraham's that I read that you can't put a smiley sticker over the top of your empty fuel tank gauge of your car and just be positive about not running out of fuel, because at some point you've got to be honest about where you're at, stop and fill up the tank. And of course, at the other side of your pain is joy. So give your permission also to find your joy. So if you have some pain today, I send you a hug, empathy and understanding. And if you haven't, then roll around in the ecstasy of your joy. And remember, if you don't do your emotions, they will do you. Thank you. Would you like a little bit more sparkle? Then you're invited to download a free poster at juliecross.com.au.